Welcome back into Climbing the Summit podcast, where the ultimate summit is self-discovery, self-realization. I'm your host, Danny Cobbin, and today we're going to talk a little bit about a learning curve. I originally heard the idea or thought about a learning curve from George Pransky, a certified therapist who talked about it in a relationship audio. And I highly suggest anything by George Pransky. You could get any of that on his website. And he was talking about relationships and communication and how anytime in our relationship we want to move forward, all we have to do is go on a learning curve. And it doesn't matter whether it is your relationship, it's at work, or it's trying to learn a new skill. When we recognize the way we as human beings work, we get an opportunity to go on this learning curve. And on the learning curve, guess what? We get to learn. All right. So if you're afraid of learning, if you don't like to get better at things, this audio might not be for you. But if that is something that you're interested in, this is for you. And the reason why it's important to talk about the learning curve ultimately is because in life as humans, we only really get one thing. That's to show up to a situation and to do the absolute best that we can in that situation. The big homie Michael Neal used to say it as you show up and then show up to what shows up. And that's ultimately all we can do. And then our mindset, our thoughts, they can take us in different directions. But the moment we recognize that all we can do in a situation is be present, it doesn't matter if I'm in a office meeting and I have to lead the presentation that my supervisor just said 3 minutes ago. Hey, I need you to lead this presentation today. Like all the thoughts in the world are swirling in my head before I go into the situation. If I continue to listen to that thought, if you continue to listen to the thoughts that are rolling around in your head, I think you got a good idea what's going to happen. You're going to be too focused inwardly on yourself and not on the people in front of you, the thing that is in front of you that needs to be done. And the moment that you get out of the meeting or you're not in front of your significant other or you're doing something different, all of these new emotions and feelings might start to flood in. And that's when the learning curve really takes off. Because we could either do one of two things in this situation. We could beat ourselves up about what we didn't get right, how we didn't do right, how we might have said something that wasn't up to par. But ultimately, those are cues, those are pointers to how we can progress and move forward in life. So as we climb up our summit, what's important to realize is that summit is a learning curve, and you get an opportunity to go on it each and every time you begin to notice what's going on in a situation. And I don't mean, oh man, I gotta be hyper focused on my performance. I need to be hyper focused on how I'm doing in the moment, because at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how focused on my thoughts I was in the moment. It matters how present I was with the activity. So I watch a lot of basketball, football, sports generally. And Kobe Bryant is one of the people I listen to. His speeches, his podcast, whatever he has out. There's no podcast because he ended up passing away a few years ago. But there's a lot of Instagram videos, YouTube videos about Kobe and his work ethic. And what I've heard is Kobe Bryant specifically was not the best player in the league, but his work ethic was. So what would happen is he would go to the gym 6 a.m., 6 a.m., get a workout in, go home, eat, hang out with family, go back to the gym at 12, 1 o'clock, eat, hang out with the family, rest up, go back again to the gym for that third time. And he would each and every time go into those sessions with everything he can. And sidebar reminds me of somebody that I was in yoga class with named Vern. Vern is a 71-year-old, I think 5-degree black belt. And I was asking him about, we were talking about doing 108 sun salutations. So if you don't know what a sun salutation is in yoga, it is essentially extended mountain, which is reaching your hands all the way overhead and then coming all the way down to a forward fold where your knees, your head is like right where your knees are and you're just hanging heavy. And you'll halfway lift. So you put your hands on your shin. You'll look like a number 7. And then you'll go into a chaturanga, which is a high plank to a low plank to an upward facing dog, downward facing dog. And then you'll repeat the cycle again. And there are, whether it's on the new year or it's a new moon, there are a lot of 108 sun salutations. And I've never been to one. So I asked Vern about it, and Vern's like, it's about what's in the head. Because if you focus on what you're doing physically, you're going to burn out. But if you go inside and you start to recognize what's happening in the moment, what is my mind telling me? What am I feeling? And pushing forward from a mental standpoint, not a physical standpoint, you'll know when your body is tired, when you need a rest. But also it gives you this level of energy, this level of passion within yourself that allows you to start to look at, am I being present? Am I being aware? Can my worth ethic get better? Can I do something differently in my life to produce a different result? And the answer is usually yes. And the reason why it's yes is because of the learning curve. So how do you go on a learning curve? Okay, so there's a few steps. Step 1, you show up to whatever the situation is, and then you do the absolute best you can in that situation. Once the situation is over, your mind is going to tell you stuff. You're going to get feedback from people. And you could either beat yourself up over the feedback, you could beat yourself up over what your mind's saying, or the beauty is, right, you can go on that learning curve. You can step to the mountain of life and say, all right, well, I want to get better at X, Y, and Z. And then it might take you a lifetime to get better at X, Y, and Z. And that's what George was saying, is that when you go on a learning curve and you start to enjoy learning about yourself, learning about the situation, learning about what you're doing, this beautiful, lotus of love inside of yourself almost, right, begins to open up because you start to be in harmony with the divine chaos that's happening all around us. Look, you're not supposed to be perfect at everything. And in fact, the reason why I've struggled so much in my life is because I thought for the longest time that if I'm not good at something the first 1, 2, 3 times I'm doing it, well, then I probably shouldn't be doing it. I should move on. I should try something different. But when we come back to the idea of the learning curve, what happens is I don't actually have to be that good at the thing I enjoy doing. I just have to enjoy doing it so that it gives me that opportunity to show back up and show back up and show back up. And I may never be where I think I should be. George Pransky talks about this, is the hindsight gap, right? Is I think I should be at level A, but I'm at level B. And people like what I'm doing at level B. But in my mind, I could be at level A. And as long as you have that, it's called a humility gap. As long as you have that humility of knowing that you can do better in a situation, maybe not that situation because it's already past and the past isn't real. It's a thought that we're bringing through time and space into the present. And then we're using this imaginary past to predict what we're going to do in the future. Like, is the past real? I mean, kinda. You can't change it. You can't do anything about it. You can't look at it any differently. So in a way, it's just a memory of what you remember. So it might not even be the situation. And what's crazy is each and every person is living in a different reality. So there is reality, and none of us are living in that. We're all living in our thoughts, right? We're all living in the reality of our thinking. So if we're living in the reality of our thinking, that means that whatever we thought about that past situation, whether true or not, is what we're going to live into. So when we then start to look at affirmations and trying to change our mindset and move forward in a way that's healthy and productive, it's like, oh, I might not believe I might not believe the affirmation that I sit down on paper, right? One of the things I got written on my board here is speak the truth about the past to create possibilities in the future. Right? Speak the truth about the past to create possibilities in the future. Why is that important? That's important because in the past, you might beat yourself up. You might be upset and frustrated about the relationship and how you acted in the relationship. But the truth is there's so many other aspects of that relationship that you might not be paying attention to. Yes, maybe you did something you weren't supposed to, but how many things did you do right in that situation? How many things did you actually nail right on the head, but you don't look at those things? You push those out of the way because you're like, oh, but I did this thing wrong here. Well, if you did this thing wrong here in the relationship and the relationship is over, can't bring that relationship back, an opportunity to go on a learning curve so that you can learn what it is you need to do in the situation to be in alignment with yourself. Yeah. So why do you want to go on a learning curve? You want to go on that learning curve because whatever you're doing in life, you can get a little bit better at. What is a learning curve? A learning curve is any time that you went through a situation and you want to get better at it and you decide, I'm going to enjoy myself as I learn a little bit more of how to process, learn a little bit more how to communicate, whatever that thing is for you. And then how do you do it? We talked about that several times, right? Is you just show up. What shows up? Once you've showed up to whatever shows up, next thing you do is you show up to your learning curve. All you can do is what you can do. You can only learn what you can learn. And there's so many things that we can't learn in this moment because like learning is almost like a progression, isn't it? It's like growth, right? I can't grow my petals before I grow my stem, right? I can't grow my stem before the roots get to sink down into the earth, right? So first, let's worry about our roots. And that's what we're talking about here. Is fundamentally everybody that I know of in the universe, we only got one choice. Show up to what shows up. That's it. You could say it's all these other things. But if you boil it down to the nature of what we're doing, we're just showing up to what shows up. And often in life, I got a front row seat to what I'm doing just like you do. Now, if you experience something different in your life, I would love to hear about that. I would love to hear how you go on your learning curve. I would love to hear what it is you do in situations where you didn't hit the nail on the head. Do you beat yourself up? Do you allow your thoughts to take you down a rabbit hole about how you weren't successful in the past and how all these other things are struggles, and because of all these other things, you can't move forward? Or are you looking at it as an opportunity to say, yeah, all that stuff did happen, right? All that stuff might be true, but that was then. That is not now, right? So I said a little bit about affirmations, and affirmations are oftentimes like a statement about yourself that you want to be true, right? Like, this is how I want to move into my future. Like for me, one of them is I'm healthy and strong. Yesterday, a couple days ago, I might have been sick. I can't say, yo, man, I've been sick, because my brain, my mind starts to look for evidence of that case. So instead of saying, oh, in the past, instead of saying, oh, I'm like this, in the past, I was like this, in the past, I was like that, and in the future, I want to look forward and be like this. Now that's here and here. Now, a lot of us think straight path. It's not. It's a mountain. It's a hill. It's a learning curve, right? So hopefully you got a little something from this learning curve conversation so that you don't beat yourself up next time you don't hit the mark when you're in your meeting or standing in front of your other significant other or any other event, right? Because this works for everything. It works for literally everything. Name a situation. Tell me what you could do in that situation. And then after the situation, if it didn't go the way it did, or if it did, what can you do next? Right? That's generally it. I wish I could put more sauce on it. I wish I could say more to it. I wish I could make it a little bit more complicated for you. But to me, it's just super simple. In life, we mess up. In life, we don't get it right. That's part of the divine chaos. That's part of the divine chaos of it all. Is I didn't get it right. Okay, all right. I could beat myself up all day about it. Is that gonna change anything? Nope. I could get frustrated at myself all day about it. Is that gonna change anything? Nope. I could build imaginary futures in my mind. And I do it all the time. And I think it's helpful in the moment until I see, oh, I haven't went on the learning curve. I need to go on a learning curve here. And once I go on the learning curve, I could do something different. But until that moment, you can't do anything different. All you can do is show up. And that's that. So as you go out and you climb your personal summit, as you go out and you go on a new learning curve, just show up to that learning curve and then show up to whatever's showing up in your life at the time. And you're just going to do the best you can. And you're going to mess up. And you're going to do better next time. Because that's all we can do. Y'all take it easy. I love you guys. And we will see you next time.